Hello, my darlings, and welcome back. A whole new month to get stuck into, and already I think it's very safe to say it's gone with a bang, hasn't it? It's very hot and very humid here where I am right now. It kind of feels like we're about to have a thunderstorm brewing, which is pretty appropriate, I think, given the Marsian transits that we have all just lived through. And as a quick recap, last week we saw the third quarter moon in Aries. And with Aries, we see that breaking into new territory, breaking into new ground, me first, leading the way. What can we start new as we begin to kind of respond and react to our world? And when we have that in a third quarter phase, it's kind of a difficult one to straddle because third quarters are quite contemplative. They're the inner structure that we're kind of reorganizing and clearing out and getting ready for the new moon. So we'll be having this kind of reflective piece around, where do I lead? Where do I go first? Where do I break new ground? And of course, on the first, we had Mars in Leo opposing Saturn in Aquarius. And currently Mars in Leo is our very kind of creative, forward momentum and masculine drive. What can I bring forward into the world? What can I create and show off to everybody? And that Mars in Leo being checked by Saturn in Aquarius was a really on point transit, I think, for a lot of people who don't necessarily appreciate the modern and radical constraint they face with Saturn Aquarius. And let's not forget, in a few days' time, we're kind of in the middle of this now, aren't we? Really being spurred into action as Mars prepares now to square against Uranus in Taurus. And if we put it all together, really, it's a transient T-square. And Uranus is the hammer as he's squaring both of these guys. The Uranus Saturn square is a very, very long transit that's going to take us right through to the end of the year. The new and the old, the constraint and the freedom kind of squaring off against each other. But Mars is joining in at the moment. So he's the other end of the continuum to Saturn. Not very impressed with the blockages Saturn provides. And as we kind of said last week on Instagram, if we see it as a test, as a way to refine and hone our Mars, refine and hone our creative drive, that kind of me first, we stand a better chance of lasting. We stand a better chance of sticking through the long game, I think. So it's a really, really good one to actively work with. You know, sometimes with transits, we let them wash over us. We sometimes just don't pay any attention at all. A lot of the slow movers in the background. But with this one, very felt, very powerful, very intense, and definitely one to kind of start saying, right, how do I want to work with how I put myself forward in the world? How do I want to be seen? How dynamic do I want to be? And kind of meeting that. And so when we have the square on the 4th, which is tomorrow, Independence Day for all you Americans, well done, guys, of getting free of the tyrannical British rule. Wish I could do that myself. So yes, tomorrow Mars will be squaring Uranus in Taurus. And this is a really, really good one. This is how we can kind of use this action to be very definite in our movement, be very definite in the way we make our decisions, with the path we forge forwards. What new can we successfully bring in? And being in Taurus, this is going to be all around our stability, our self-nurturing, how we relate to ourselves, longevity. That's Taurus. Taurus is very stable, very fixed. So again, you know, both of these planets by design really refining that Mars function. Mars doesn't necessarily like being messed with too much. He's busy, he's hot-headed, he's off. But if we can really kind of stay the pace with this, if we can work with this T-square, I think we'll come out the other side of it a lot better and a lot wiser. So hang in there, kids. We haven't got too much longer to go with that. And yeah, Let's not forget the third quarter, Aries, ruled by Mars, initiating that new. It will show you the shit that you don't want to carry with you anymore, the baggage that you kind of need to drop, that mental adjustment and reevaluation of your beliefs in your inner world, and prepare for the new moon coming in Cancer around about the 10th, helping you set your course. So yeah, pretty intense, isn't it? The moon is in Taurus right now, however, as we talk, and conjuncts Uranus on the 4th. So I hung on just a little while until the moon was in Taurus, because I was just a bit too feisty, quite frankly. I've been cracking jokes with my friends about Annie Oakley, bring your gun. That's our mentality at the moment. Anyway, back to our monthly overview. Shall we take a gander at the lunations we've got coming up? We have 5 this month, actually. But of course we do, because we're in Cancer season. And we've just touched on the first one, which has come, been and gone, with Aries third quarter. Coming up on the 10th of July, the best day of the year, if you ask me, we see our July new moon in Cancer. Woohoo! The Cancerian new moon is a cardinal new moon, just as the third quarter was in Aries, and a new initiation, this time into the watery depths of the ego, personal form, a distinct, separate being. I like how Jeff Wolfe talks of the ego, actually. Yeah, I know, no surprises there, right? But he taught it that the ego was like a projector, this vortex of energy within consciousness. And the trick isn't really to transcend beyond an ego. You're not here on planet Earth to do that necessarily. Sorry. You kind of need an ego if you want to know who you are. But the whole point really is to learn to align it with the soul, the cause of the ego, if you like. And I think a lot of people don't really get ego as a concept. And instinctively in astrology, we can quite often associate it with Leo or Aries, the headstrong, creative dynamics. But Cancer, the moon and the 4th, is the actual structure, the self-image and the emotional dynamics of the ego, having been developed within the individual journey from Aries into Taurus, into Gemini. And ego is a good thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It helps you to understand who you are presently, who you are in this incarnation, a beautiful, distinct being of source creation. Yay, go humans! And don't forget how amazing you are. So this new moon is a really valuable time to allow yourself to revel in your humanity, revel in your God-given source. Self-acceptance, appreciation, self-love. Of course, if we think about the whole emotional integration vibe of us Cancerians, including the integration of our masculine and feminine energies, this is kind of how we start the process, isn't it? That with self-love, with self-acceptance. So a really, really useful new moon coming up for us. The rest of the month we will talk in depth as we go along in the month, but for now, just to give you some dates for your diaries, we have our first quarter at 25 Libra 03 on the 17th, and that will have a real focus on how we relate to the other and balancing of extremes. I mean, how pertinent, much needed reflection I think this will be. First quarter can be a bit hairy because we're seeing the dynamics in the outer world. But again, if we know what it is, we know what's coming, we can be calm and we can work with it. On the 24th, we have a beautiful Aquarian full moon at 1 Aquarius 26. Downloads galore, I think, to shoot down to our leonine sun, who will be at 1 degree Leo. What a nice way to commence Leo season. That infusing of our creative actualizing of our purpose with that humanitarian, with that for the good, for the collective full moon. This is going to be really powerful. And for those of you who are bringing creations into the world, get your intent on with this for sure. And our final lunation of the month will be our third quarter. Yeah, 2 third quarters. On the 31st at 8 Taurus 33. And this is applying to Uranus and squaring Saturn. again, I think this will be very, very much a period of reflection, as our emotional energies are reflecting the dynamics of the Mars and Venus function transits that we will have passed through completely by this point. Quick look at our ingresses as well. We have a fair few this month. July the 11th, Mercury enters Cancer. And on July the 22nd, at the same time as Venus enters Virgo, we commence Leo season with the Sun entering Leo. On the 28th, Mercury goes into Leo as well. He zips through Cancer, doesn't he? And Jupiter retrograde comes back into Aquarius. On July the 29th, Mars makes his way into Virgo. And as for our retrogrades, well, we don't have any new commencing necessarily, other than Chiron going retrograde in Aries, which he does on the 15th of July at 12 Aries 55 and stays there until the 19th of December, going way back to 8 Aries 26, where he then turns prograde and comes back up again. And Chiron spends quite a lot of time in Aries, and Aries retrograde for Chiron is a really interesting concept, I think, in terms of healing the wounded warrior. We can look at this one two ways. So on the one hand, where do we need to heal our survival, where we've initiated new experiences, where we've gone forward in the world to experience the world, to react to the world. You know, of course, all of our experiences in life and our past lives aren't always going to be great and rosy. Yeah, we carry a lot of scars, and certainly Chiron speaks to areas such as epigenetics, ancestral trauma, as well as, you know, past incarnational trauma too. So he carries that vibe with him, but equally being in Aries and internalized, we can look at how we can begin healing. So that's pretty much the month in a nutshell. Let's go on and take a little look at some of the transits that are going to be hitting us over the next week or so. And I think we should probably start with Venus and what she's going to be up to. So interesting times, actually. I say that every time, don't I? Interesting time. But it is interesting. Of course it is to me. I'm a bloody astrologer. But yeah, as Venus approaches her masculine counterpart in fixed creative Leo, these two together are procreation central, be it a creative endeavor, a literal fleshy little person you want to bring into the world. The electro and the magnetic together here, especially in Leo, are create with a capital create. And it's nice to see these two here together. When I see my planetary pairs conjunct and in the same sign, I find that quite satisfying. I'm like, oh good, there's some alignment there, we can make use of that. They go conjunct on the 13th at 19 Leo 49. But before that, Venus herself does the same fandango that Mars has been up to a few days before her. And so Venus will oppose Saturn on the 7th in Aquarius 1201. She will be at that same point in Leo. And then on the 8th, she will square Uranus in Taurus 1404. And so let's quickly recap on what our Venus function is about very broadly. Of course, it's different for people in accordance with their sign, their house, aspects, etc., etc. But very broadly speaking, when we learn our signs, Venus is pretty much the way we relate and what we attract, as well as things like our aesthetics and preferences. And that includes how we relate to ourselves, because of course Venus rules both Libra and Taurus. Taurus relates to the self, Libra relates to the other. And in Leo we have that fixed fire energy, so more expressive, warm, and yeah, dramatic than she was in woohoo Cancer a little while ago. And if she isn't that confident in herself, she's going to fake it till she makes it, yo. She's not going to let you know. Just as Mars does it in the same sign. They will bluster their way through. They will blag, as we would say here in the UK. And so when she opposes Saturn, we can see this friction between what we want on a personal, creative, sort of star of the show level, and the needs of the group or society at large, with Saturn lurking there. And so I guess the trick would be to make yourself socially relevant, if indeed you are trying to put yourself out there. Not in a sort of sell-out product placement kind of way necessarily, but put the focus on your creativity and that being well received, as opposed to showmanship or style with no substance, which we can quite often accuse Leo of. And with this transit, quite frankly, the feedback you get back, if you put something out into the world, will very quickly tell you what track you're on, most likely. We've also got Black Moon Lilith in Taurus trining Pluto at 25 degrees apiece with this one. And so we might also be more fueled by our insecurities and shadow than our creativity itself if we aren't careful, if that makes sense. Both Black Moon Lilith and Chiron in Taurus can speak to issues of lack and fear, not having enough, not feeling safe, whereas Chiron can perhaps speak to more the epigenetics of starvation and famine, as well as kind of past lives down that track. Black Moon Lilith will be more about the acceptance of being able to create on the land, and not necessarily feel safe and in the flow at times. So between her energy there and the Death Star over in Capricorn trining each other in that kind of unchecked reciprocation of energy, it could be a bit overwhelming. So if we look at Capricorn and the Saturn involvement, a real test of how we relate to the world, what we're wanting to provide as our unique creation, and where we're coming from with this. Check in with those insecurities. What is encouraging you to put out there? Do you want to create, bring something beautiful in the world? Or are you scared shitless that you're not going to be able to feed yourself or be accepted? These are the concepts we're kind of straddling with this one. At the same time, we've got the moon conjunct the nodes in Gemini, and our emotions can be quite logical where our feelings are concerned. And actually, we might be able to better understand ourselves with this lunar placement. We have this gift of feeling more comfortable in understanding what makes us tick. And this whole dynamic falls off the back of Mars shooting his way into this aspect last week. So a lot of this is kind of consolidation work of the ground we broke with the aspect with Mars. And we will feel a lot of what we went through last week, almost like a delayed response, if you like, but in a more gentle way, in a way which gives us space and allows us to understand what makes us tick. And so then on the 8th, she'll go on and square Uranus. So really, again, that the T-square with Uranus, to not mention that would be really quite remiss. So Uranus is in charge here. Again, he's the hammer of this fixed T-square, and just like we said a minute ago, we're called to understand why we relate to others and begin to change our tune with this if we need to align in a way which incorporates social relevancy, new ideas, new ways of relating, new ways of creating, that kind of social relevancy balanced with our uniqueness and our talent. And the action we take when Venus squares that Uranus will be based around all of these constructs. Kind of, I guess, a little bit along the lines of Cancer season, that whole integration of emotions. The other major astrological factor affecting us this week, of course, is that final hit of the Mercury-Neptune square. These guys are at it. The third and final square would be at 23 degrees. Mercury is now prograde in Gemini. Neptune is retrograde in Pisces. And this will be exact on the 6th, so the day before Venus kicks off, really. And these two have been conspiring together a bit over the past 2 months. And as with most transit aspects where Neptune is concerned, and even with Mercury in the picture, right, the play out is always best understood in retrospect. I know in astrology, in all things in life really, as humans, we do need to define, don't we? We need to define and to understand. And so we do have our basic concepts of Neptune and how we appreciate that function to a degree, but it does really, really defy our human experience in so many ways. Certainly when it pulls on, ideas of blind faith, absolution of concepts that just aren't relevant anymore. And the way Neptune does that, everything becomes misty, everything becomes confused, and you are in a way kind of forced to relinquish any control or any comfort you may feel in trying to assess and trying to make sense of your world. It's that part of us that is divine, that connects up through the collective into divinity, into source creation. And to me, that the Neptune transits quite often speak to that phrase of, let go and let God. As trite as that can be, and as difficult as that can be as well, especially in these times when we want certainties, we want to know what's true, we want to know what's fact, we want to know what's fiction. The playoff between these two is having none of that a lot of the time, and so many of us have been on this roller coaster ride without necessarily being fully aware of that. And that's Neptune, bless him. It's like when he goes retrograde. I shouldn't say this really, but when Neptune goes retrograde, I just, generally speaking, with transits, it makes very little difference to me. That's how nebulous I find Neptune. Of course, when someone has it as a natal placement, it's slightly different the way it will affect them through their lives. So when these two are at a stressful angle, we can get caught up between fact and fiction, fantasy, logic, empathic knowing, highs and lows of rose-tinted glasses, followed by like acute anxiety, secrets, confusion, misrepresentation, revelation, abstract and logic. We bounce around between these two extremes, and just what 2021 called for, isn't it? But as we come out the other side of this, post the 6th, mind you, and hopefully somewhere between these two extremes, we can begin to reflect and we can begin to understand the gifts that we have been offered by Neptune, as we consider how we can go forward and temper that mindset that we have. We can leave behind ideas that just don't stand up to scrutiny, and we can realize where we've perhaps bought into ideals, people, and concepts that we just have to walk away from. We just have to leave behind, these situations and ways of thinking that we now need to really extricate ourselves from. So I think we'll have more clarity, post these two T-squares with Venus and Mars, post this square between Mercury and Neptune. I think we'll have a lot more clarity regarding the direction we want and need to take ourselves in to thrive and prosper. And of course, when we leave things and people potentially behind, that's not to judge or to criticize at all, but in order to better understand ourselves and others, and to make progress in the world. As we've been touched by Neptune's humanitarian watery world, compassion is just as much a focal point here as truth and integrity, and we need to remember that, I think. And as fraught as their tango has been at times, as furtive as their influence has been as they've taken it in turns to go in retrograde, and indeed, on other aspects that we've lived through, they've been hanging around in the background doing their thing, haven't they? We should be feeling very, very soon more clearer and more at peace within ourselves, and hopefully able to communicate more peaceably with others, certainly more peaceably than I've been doing under this Mars transit. And I think this is highlighted by the moon that just passes over the North Node on this day as well. We will want to express our emotions, Cancer season, and we'll want to communicate our emotions too. But just remember that this transit is still active. I'm talking like it's already come, been and gone. Forgive me, I'm a Mercury retrograde native. It hasn't yet, and it won't be clear enough until after the 6th. So just remember that even though we've got the moon in Gemini communicating those emotions, communicating what you perceive as your truth and your reality, things could shift pretty bloody quickly after the 6th. So talk away, communicate away, feel your feels, but just be aware you may feel differently. So I wouldn't advise you necessarily commit to anything that day. Just say thank you, I'll have a think about it if anything does come up that needs a snap decision, because this is a really strong transit that can really kind of get lost in the fray of all of the astrology that's going on at the moment. And so I will leave us there, guys. Hopefully that's been okay for you. We'll be back again next week. Really want to resume our weekly videos. It's been a very, very interesting time for me. And I do apologise for not being here every week as I have been. You know, there was a part of me thinking, oh no, if I put a video up now, will anyone watch it? But I hope you do. And I hope it gives you something. I hope it provides some value to you. Again, as ever, if you want more regular updates, you can go and check out Instagram with the posts. If you're interested in learning astrology to a deeper level, you can check out the course. And yeah, I've even done a little bit of artwork on Etsy, and thanks to those of you who've been and checked that out. I do appreciate it. We might do some more for Leo season, we'll see. But for now, I give you all my love. Stay calm, stay cool, stay aware, and we'll talk again next week. Take care, guys. Bye bye.